In the hushed shadows of the Blue Ridge Mountains, where the mist clings stubbornly to the pines and the birdsong always carries a faint dreariness, a child was born one cold November evening. His name was Nathaniel Graves. He came into the world just after midnight, in a farmhouse that had belonged to the Graves family for nearly a century. His mother, Elise, clutched him to her chest, offering him to the quiet, passive father who stood with trembling hands. They named him with purpose, Nathaniel, meaning gift of God. Nobody knew, of course, that Nathaniel wasn't a gift. He was a weapon. Nathaniel grew into a handsome, level-headed man, a journalist by trade, but a seeker by instinct. People admired his calm demeanor, his natural curiosity, and the way he made others feel seen, really seen. But underneath it all, Nathaniel felt unsettled, not ungrateful. His parents were kind, if distant. The Graves family wasn't wealthy, but they were respected. Owned land, kept traditions, said grace, and never missed the community's harvest festival. Still, Nathaniel often dreamt of fire, of vintage cars exploding, of masked men shouting, then neon green eyes that burned like emeralds. Every time he'd wake up sweating, heart crashing inside his ribs like a frightened horse. When he was 32, his mother fell terminally ill. Cancer, the kind that doesn't give you the decency of a goodbye. In her final week, she called him over to her bedside. "Your father and I, we did what we had to," she whispered. Those were her last words. "No, I love you. No, be strong. Just, we did what we had to." That's when Nathaniel knew his life was built on something broken. Haunted by that cryptic message, Nathaniel took a leave of absence from work and started digging. Metaphorically at first, then literally. He rummaged through old trunks in the attic, finding photographs that didn't include him. In particular, he found one photograph, old, dog-eared and tucked beneath the floorboards, of two families. On the left side, his father. Now a much younger man, shaking hands with a broad-chested man wearing a Stetson hat. Children in the background, maybe 12 or 13 of them. Name on the back read, Graves Morrigan Accord, 1987. Morrigan, a name he'd never heard before, but it sounded final, like a crow's cry. Nathaniel turned his attention to local archives, took trips to the Cali Records office, and after weeks of hunting, he stumbled upon the snarl of it all. A murder case file, sealed, but not properly digitized. Morrigan, Duncan, escaped convict, implicated in the firebombing of a Graves family car dealership, suspected in the death of George Graves Jr.'s younger brother, Eli. Date, December 1986. Then came the pay dirt. The children were kept safe. As part of restitution, the Morrigans agreed to send their youngest daughter to live under supervision with the Graves for a 10-year probationary integration. Integration? Nathaniel stared at the name listed. Elise Morrigan, his mother. Everything blurred into static. After confronting his father, Nathaniel finally got a part of the truth. Elise Morrigan, a child of the rival family, had been taken in not as a ward, but as part of a peace treaty brokered in secret. What Nathaniel learned next would change his identity forever. He wasn't conceived out of love, not even out of lust. His birth was the second phase of the revenge his mother had orchestrated, after 3 of her brothers died in the feud started by the Graves decades prior. Nathaniel was a child bred under the illusion of forgiveness, a ticking time bomb meant to grow up loved by the Graves, to inherit the land, the name, the trust of the community, until one day the Morrigans would return, and Nathaniel would open the gates wide for them. The sins of the father would be paid by the blood of the son, but time makes fools of all leaders, and revenge rarely ages well. Elise couldn't go through with it. She had fallen in love, not with George Graves, but with the life she built apart from hate. Even so, she never warned Nathaniel. She never let him choose. When she died, murmuring, "We did what we had to," it broke the chains she spent half her life trying to forget. Because she knew the Morrigans hadn't forgotten. Weeks after Elise's burial, Nathaniel begins receiving anonymous letters, scraps of old photos, newspaper clippings with the Graves dealership circled in red. A child's drawing featuring stick figures labeled Mommy, Me, and one scrawled with a question mark. The address? A P.O. box in Kentucky, far from the Virginia hills he called home. Before long, Nathaniel is followed. His gray shepherd, Judah, is killed, poisoned. Duct taped to his porch railing is a note that means simply, "A blood you carry is not yours alone." That's when Nathaniel makes a decision he never thought he'd make. He takes a long look in the mirror and wonders, am I a Graves, a Morrigan, or something entirely new? He drives to Kentucky. There, deep in the tobacco flats and backwater roads, he meets Arden Morrigan, leader of what now calls himself the True Line. A bitter, worn-down man with the kind of glare that rots steel. Arden is his uncle, and he's been waiting decades for this reunion. Welcome home, son of the pact. The Morrigan hideout is more of a compound. Trailers circled like wagons, bonfires burning constant, children raised with stories of righteous fury. They treat Arden like a prophet. And now, they treat Nathaniel like the Messiah of vengeance. He's offered a choice. They took from us. You are the key. You are one of them, but born of us. You were always meant to bring their downfall, from the inside out. But Nathaniel starts asking questions they don't like. About forgiveness, about breaking cycles, about building a future rather than digging up the past. He befriends a young cousin named Calla, barely 18, full of rage and promise and poetry. And he sees his younger self in her. Brilliant, curious, but filled. Back in Virginia, the annual Harvest Festival nears. The one all Graves attend, where good Christian folk mingle under string lights and hay bales, sipping cider. It's the perfect place for an ambush, and Arden intends to make this one the final strike. Nathaniel plays along, on the surface, but beneath the surface, his message to Calla works. She flees the compound and warns the Graves. Not all of them listen. The old guard still dreams of vengeance, but Nathaniel finds allies old and new within his community. He sets the trap. He corners Arden, now nearly deranged with obsession. Blood must pay blood. And Nathaniel finally says the words neither family had the courage to say. Then let it end with mine. He steps forward, weaponless, vulnerable, willing. But Calla, hidden in the shadows, makes a choice. A true daughter of both bloodlines. She shoots Arden before he can raise his weapon. Not out of hate, out of mercy. It's been 6 months since the night of the Harvest Moon confrontation. The orchard Nathaniel planted is beginning to sprout, young shoots reaching up through earth once soaked with silent hatred. Calla helps him in the soil, planting trees as offerings to both the past and the possibility of the future. When the press comes knocking, eager to make a spectacle of the farm that ended a blood feud, Nathaniel turns them away. But one journalist, his old friend and colleague, Maya Ivers, won't let it go. She sees more than a story. She sees truth that could be a bridge for others walking along their own generational fault lines. Reluctantly, Nathaniel agrees to an interview, just one. But in doing so, he finds the words he never thought he can speak aloud. He tells the world, I was born between war and peace. I inherited blood that should have never touched. But I choose to be the soil, not the sword. Copies of the interview go viral. Some cheer. Some rage, others, quietly, forgive. But not everyone lets go. Arden is gone, but he wasn't the only fire in the Morrigan compound. Arden's sister, Ravina, who others nicknamed the Keeper of Names, disappears after his death. Whispered to be as dangerous as Arden, but far more calculating, she was the historian of the Morrigans, holder of the bloodlines, the grudges, the ancient stories. She sees Nathaniel's actions and Calla's betrayal as a desecration of legacy. She sends messages, cryptic letters, folklore rewritten to cast Nathaniel as Judas and Calla as the Amalekite, a reference to ancient vendettas never forgiven. Ravina begins gathering the remaining loyalists, not many, but enough, and she begins writing her own book, a true account of what really happened. And in that version, the Graves line is not redeemed. It must be erased. Meanwhile, Nathaniel begins restoring the family house, the Graves farmhouse. Not just repainting it, but restoring the walls where bullet holes once pierced them during raids. rebuilding the old library where his uncle Eli once read before he died in the firebombing. He finds fragments of things long buried, a blood-soaked journal belonging to Eli, filled with poetry and grief, receipts proving that some of the Graves might have retaliated more viciously than ever admitted. He considers burning it all, but Calla stops him. If you hide the sins, you feed them. If you own them, you bury them properly. They begin gathering accounts, interviewing elders from both families, not to glorify or blame, but to understand. They hold open forums at the church, invite the broken and the bitter to speak. At first, it's chaos, then silence, then a single question from a child in the front row. Are we going to be angry too? That night, an elder Morrigan named Edgar stands and says, I lost a brother, but I don't have to lose my grandson too. The community is shaken, but the dam has started to crack. Word arrives. Ravina has published her book. It's called Justice from Ashes. Inside, she names names. Insinuates that Nathaniel's piece is a manipulation, that Elise Morrigan was brainwashed, that Arden's death was an assassination, that the true line still has blood debts unpaid. The town divides. Old scars rupture. The sheriff, Nathaniel's childhood friend, Darius Fletch, demands that Nathaniel address the claims publicly. Nathaniel agrees, but not in his own defense. He organizes a town tribunal, not a court of law, but a trial of truth, a gathering to bring all narratives, all facts, and all myths into the open under one rule. Everyone speaks and everyone listens. Ravina doesn't attend, but one of her followers does, a gaunt, haunted young man named Bevan, wearing his grief like armor. He confronts Nathaniel. You are born of them. You should have stayed silent. You killed our future. Nathaniel, voice quiet but unshaken. If I killed anything, it was the lie that love can't grow between enemies. The trial ends not with applause, but with silence, and then a decision. The Orchard Pact is made official, a binding agreement between descendants of the feud. Land will become shared, a foundation will be established, and all stories, both dark and bright, will be archived honestly in the town's new library wing, without erasure. Months later, the orchard reaches its first bloom, white blossoms where old bones once rested. But on the night the community celebrates a year of peace, crows descend in droves, an omen in Morrigan folklore. Ravina appears. She doesn't bring an army, just 2 children, orphaned by the feud, and a journal, her final olive branch, or dagger. She reads from the journal, one nobody's found yet. Arden's final confession. The twist? Arden had known about Elise's change of heart. He'd known Nathaniel might end the line, and in private letters to Ravina, he worried about the trap of vengeance he built. Arden had fallen into the very fire he swore he would wield. Ravina's hand shakes. I thought hate made us strong, she says, but it only made me alone. She drops the journal into Nathaniel's hand and walks into the orchard without a word, and collapses, sobbing, beneath Eli's tree. No one arrests her. No one cheers. The only sound is the wind rustling petals. 10 years have passed. Nathaniel is now a father. Calla, now a teacher in the little school they helped build, runs workshops titled Children of Peace. She teaches poems written by Eli Graves and songs once sung in the Morrigan compound. Ravina tends the orchard every Sunday. Now old, quiet, changed, the orchard is now larger than the first Graves pasture, and in the heart of the grove stands a tall stone. No names, just words. Legacy is not what we inherit. It's what we plant. Standing beneath it, his son beside him, Nathaniel finally understands. He wasn't a weapon. He was a garden. And his mother saw that. Revenge is inherited, but so is choice. So is change. So is grace. Inherited sin does not end with blood or fire. It ends with roots breaking stone, with children learning both sides of the song, and with a man who was never meant to live past legacy, becoming legacy itself.